Welcome everyone to HogvilleNET YouTube Live. I'm Kevin McPherson. Good morning, good Saturday morning. Hope your weekend's off to a great start. But it's always a great time to talk Arkansas Razorbacks men's basketball. Plenty going on. Continues to be the case. You know, we're sitting here looking at this 25-26 roster upcoming season. I know it's again July, and you're thinking, well, they're probably done, finished now. We've been wondering about that. We know John Calipari, sneaky good at adding quality players late. If nothing else, maybe another developmental piece. But it appears as though technically Arkansas still has a roster spot open. Remember, walk-on Aiden Kelly now mentioned on the roster, listed on the roster, but he's also somebody that's grandfathered in as a walk-on from the previous year, the new House bill that pushed through. And what that means is walk-ons moving forward will be counting against your 15 scholarship limit, not against the scholarship, but how many players you can have on the roster and put on the bench and suit up every game. And so Kelly would not count because he was a walk-on last year prior to the bill passing. We kind of went through all of that, leaving a spot open because you've got 14 other players, including walk-on Amir Brown, who does count against the number because he's a first-year walk-on coming into it. This next season, he'll be a freshman, the 5'10 guard out of Pittsburgh. So we say all that to say we've been tracking Mikel Bruce McCroman. Not sure. I missed that message coming over. Mikel Bruce McCroman, excuse me, a 6'6 wing out of Pittsburgh. Speaking of that Pittsburgh area that Calipari loves to bring in players from, that's his roots. And so Arkansas staffers Calipari and then his son, Brad Calipari, who's in charge of Arkansas's player development. We're out to see him in the last two live eval periods. We talked about that. Those are completed now. Everybody on the spring and summer circuit, all that's wrapped up. You'll see some various camps, player camps, invite-only camps, some of these prestigious camps that'll still happen, in August, some in September, some in October. So these things will kind of spread out, and you'll see some of the top players that Arkansas may be pursuing attending and taking part in some of these camps. But aside from that, your live eval part of it is finished for now. When you look at at least on in the continental United States, Alaska and Hawaii, because that's where the NCAA rules reach. But it apparently doesn't exclude some of the international competition, which is the info we're going to share today. Arkansas staffer Chuck Martin, man, he's been a globetrotter. The guy's everywhere. Remember, he was in Switzerland for the FIBA U19 event that was played out late June, early July. Team USA, of course, 4 class of 2026 players on that 12-player team that Arkansas has made a priority out of. We've already talked about those guys ad nauseum, including some international players maybe in that U19 event that Arkansas was paying attention to. Well, it hasn't translated yet for any of the players on the 2026 team, Team USA, committing to Arkansas. However, you've got a visit that's been announced coming out of that, Jordan Smith Jr., right? For September 20th to 21st. That's a weekend in Fayetteville where the football Hogs won't be playing. They'll be on the road. So it is official visit weekend set up out of that. But that's a player Arkansas was recruiting mostly stateside, and just happened to be Chuck Martin was there to see him, Tyron Stokes, Caleb Holt, and Brandon McCoy. And then again, we went through probably 15 or so international players in that event that are Division I worthy. Many of those were designated for class of 2025, some 2026. And we haven't seen anything in terms of where that might land with Arkansas, not to this point. What's interesting is Chuck Martin's back on the road now, and he is in Serbia for the FIBA Eurobasket. It's basically the team national teams through Europe that are competing. And it starts today. I think the first games are today. But Chuck Martin's in Serbia, and it's a U18. So not U19 was the previous event. This is U18. Talking about adding more players to the roster until August. There's a date in August. But Chuck Martin is, again, on the road recruiting. And so these players, I've checked around on the U18 2026, even younger 2027, those classes. but there may still be some possibilities for class of 2025 and what Arkansas is looking at, which would potentially mean if you're 2025 and you get a player committed, you bring him into onto your team, that would be this upcoming season, this upcoming roster. Again, until school starts back up, there are opportunities to add players based on a variety of things that can happen. Something weird with a player that's on a college team right now, like a coach being fired late for some weird thing. That's happened in the past with Bob Huggins in West Virginia and Trey Mitchell landing in the lap of John Calipari later. So, later, not sooner. When you think of a typical recruiting cycle, building your roster, moving into the next season, we know Arkansas brought most of its team back onto campus with new additions and the retention back in late May, rolling into June, and they've already done their summer work, their limited summer practices. So you're thinking it's kind of late, but not really. I mean, again, Calipari's got a track record with it. He's got a track record with international guys. We know he added a couple of effectively international players in mid-June, sort of back in developmental guys for the most part. Maybe one has a faster track to impacting the roster, impacting the rotation, and impacting a significant role at maybe sooner rather than later. Maybe the other one, a couple of 7-footers, is going to be a longer term developmental piece. But we'll see how all that plays out, and then we'll see what Arkansas is looking at now. Chuck Martin's not over there just to spin his wheels. It doesn't mean that they're on a fast track to add someone for this roster. It doesn't mean that, but it could be that. It also could be the heavy target names that we've seen already for 2026, and we know who their priorities have been. We know how much time they've spent recruiting these players and getting courtside to see them going back to the spring in this spring and summer grassroots cycle. But even going back beyond a year, we've gone through some of those players that Arkansas has been pursuing for over a year, and now it's getting to a point where you're trying to get visits scheduled. Some they have, some are pending. We'll see what happens. But with international players, it's a little bit different. You can't be courtside all the time, so you have to use these opportunities to do it. And again, Calipari's not bashful about bringing in international players, so we'll just keep an eye on it. We'll see if there's any path for any players they're looking at now or saw back at FIBA U19 where they're going to get to a point where they bring somebody in for this current roster, or it's just for the next class. And if they're only going to take 3 or 4, and you've already got J.J. Andrews on board, we've talked about this, then that can, you've cast a wide enough net where you feel like you're going to add quality with the next 2 or 3. What do I know about Trump's executive order that he signed? Only that it's supposed to limit the third party influx of unbalancing the scales for throwing a lot of money at players. With the whole idea with the House bill and bringing in the revenue share part of it was also to have that clearinghouse where they kind of put controls and a governor, so to speak, on some of these I guess high escalating offers and ways to pay players that maybe make it an unfair playing field for others. It's always been the way where whether it's under the table or above board, before you couldn't pay players at all. So anything like that was under the table and against the rules. Now it's different. It got kind of wild. I don't know that you can put the toothpaste back in the tube. I think that's going to be tough to do. So from that standpoint, I don't know effectively really what this does. I don't know how much of an impact this really will have trying to curtail some of that stuff. Just like I don't know that the House bill, I think there's going to be a ton of litigation based on different scenarios that play out. If you try to stop players from getting paid in what they think should be a free marketplace, then they're going to go to court with it. And so Trump's executive order, presidents sign executive orders all the time that get shot down in the courts. Whether it's lower courts or all the way up to the Supreme Court. So those kind of things happen. I know that Arkansas's admin, including John Calipari, Hunter Yurachek, they're pleased with it and the language in it and what it's purported to do to try to rein in some of the wildness with some of these big dollar amounts being offered to players. But at the end of the day, we'll see what's effective and what isn't. Again, the courts will have be and play, I think, a lot in these scenarios as they play out. All right, so we didn't come on here to talk about all that today. I appreciate the question though. Answered it the best I could with vague generalities. I think it's too soon to know. Powerhouses like Cal backing the executive order. I mean, you know, um, that's why voices are important, especially with coaches that have a platform as big as Calipari's. That's why they weigh in. Why sit on the sidelines if you have it? You see it a certain way, and you're on one side of things. Then you need to use your platform to speak your truth or what you believe should be. And Calipari's weighed in on it, so we'll see what happens. I think there's always good and bad with everything. I don't think everything's as bad as some people portray it, not as good as others do, and you try to find that middle ground and do what makes sense. The thing is, you've opened up the door, pay for play, basically. And so, how do you really regulate that? They'll try, and then we'll see what happens with that. All right, 11 minutes in. Thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. I'm Kevin McPherson. If you haven't done it already, please hit subscribe, like, and share. That helps us out. So there's there. Chuck Martin back on the road. FIBA U18 Euro. I think they call it Euro Basket. It's a lot of nations over there competing. A lot of the top players in the world. And we know that a lot of these players come over and not only impact the college game, the NBA level, but sometimes they rise up and are among the best players. Not in the NBA now. We've seen you look at the last few MVPs, and it's been international guys. Even Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, a Canadian. The Joker, Nikola Jokic. Joel Embiid, the Greek freak Giannis Antetokounmpo. All of these are international players that came over and playing at the highest levels now. The best players in the NBA. Kind of interesting, isn't it? All right. So having said that, we'll keep our eyes on these if there's any true developments in terms of some momentum towards international players. At this point, because of the time spent overseas, especially in the last few weeks, if not for this upcoming roster, and if not for 2026, maybe there'll be something in the works for the next class and the next cycle. Who knows? But I think there's a reason they're over there beyond just taking a trip overseas and spending money that otherwise could have been used somewhere else in recruiting. Let's move into the fact that the last few days have been interesting when you look at the Pro Hogs coming home. I was in Fort Smith 2 days ago for the big parade and celebration honoring Isaiah Joe and Jalen Williams. On our last segment yesterday, we went through that, and I kind of recapped all of that and how cool it was to see two players that at the high school level in Fort Smith and Northside bringing state titles to the Grizzlies, but on different Grizzlies teams. They didn't do it together. And the one season they did get to the state title game together was the year they lost in the championship game, and they lost to North Little Rock, and the title game MVP was Moses Moody. Well, Moses Moody last night was the first of many events through the weekend, Friday night, Saturday, today, and then tomorrow. He's got multiple events, I think 4 or 5 different events dedicated through his Motivate One Foundation, where he gives back to the community, and he comes back every year to Central Arkansas, and he brings a powerhouse guest with him. In year one, it was Klay Thompson. I was there while they chopped it up in front of a sold-out, packed house room where it's kind of like a fireside chat where they're talking about different things about being professional, all kinds of stuff, not just about the basketball between the lines, but other things. And he brought his agent down, Rich Paul, Clutch Sports Agency, last year. I was there for that. It was really good. And then last night was probably my favorite one to this point. Draymond Green, who is a lightning rod for controversy, a future Hall of Famer, a 4-time NBA champion. Moses Moody was a rookie when Draymond Green helped bring the 4th and most recent last title to San Francisco and Golden State back in the 21-22 season. So Mo brought Draymond Green with him to the 501, and I was there last night for their fireside chat. It was really nice. We had a media availability where the media showed up and interviewed Moses early in the evening. I tweeted out parts of that. We got to take photos of his championship ring, which is pretty big. I don't know if he could wear that. If he tries to swim, he might just sink to the bottom. But it was really cool leading up. There was a little VIP gathering, and that was pretty cool. I got to document some of that and hang out in the VIP area. So all that was cool. Draymond Green shows up, and what I liked immediately was there was people still coming in. It was still kind of early, and the place filled up over a course of an hour. But when Draymond was there, I was in the room. There were maybe 20 people at that point. It's kind of early still, and he approached me, and I guess he was wanting to meet everybody and shake hands, and so we met, and he was a super nice guy. But I've always gotten the impression his antics on the court don't define who he really is, because I've heard him speak off the court, whether it's podcasts, different things. And, the TNT crew would bring him in to join Shaq and Charles and and Kenny, the Jet Smith, for games. So he's not only a well-spoken guy, but a very thoughtful and intelligent guy. But just the fact that he was so warm to everybody and wanted to meet everybody and asked names and how are you tied to Moses, and so we chatted it up for about a minute or two. It was real nice. I think the big takeaway I had was these fireside chats. You pack the place in. Yeah, there's family, friends, people. The tickets were sold out pretty quick when this was announced a few weeks ago. But what I really like about it are the stories that are told about the journey of being a professional. And it's so much about it's not really what happens again on the court, but just how you conduct yourself, how you deal with people. The fact that these guys do make a lot of money and they're in the public eye, and a lot of it's great, but there are also things they give up. There's a cost to that. Family time. They don't have a lot of time, period, but family stuff, other things that when they got to this point, the people that helped them get there and that were a big part of their lives, how they don't have as much time for them. They have to make time for that and juggle being a professional, doing what's expected. Talked about the Golden State culture and how that culture of winning means everything. It's all about that. It starts with that. And so, and it's interesting because different organizations do it differently. But at Golden State, what I thought was interesting that Draymond Green said, and Moses Moody backed this up. He said there are no fake relationships in that organization, that everybody's expected to be their own individual person. They don't have to be the same as the guy next to him, because that engenders a fake environment. If you look at Steph Curry is the best player in that organization, which he has been, and you expect guys to come in and do exactly what he does and be like him or try to be like him, not in terms of being the greatest shooter of all time, but just all of his manner, whatever. If you try to emulate everything, then you're not who you are, and then you don't have you do not have genuine interactions in a room, whether it's the locker room or meetings, whatever. So they want everybody to be who they are, and then the people that are drafting and putting the team together got to figure out how to make that work. But because the culture is so strong, the culture of winning, the culture of communication, the culture of being real and building real relationships, and Draymond said that at the end of the day, if you have to be candid with somebody as a teammate, if you have to tell them like it is, when you have a genuine relationship, it's a lot easier to do. When you have a fake relationship, things can go south pretty quickly. So he said that is the root of the culture there. And that's part of how and he credited all the front office people. He didn't make it just about the players. Talked a lot about some of the individuals and front office people that helped shape that organization, and then the quality of the players. And so a lot of the stuff they talked about was really cool. I think one of the things as it pertains to Moses that really stood out to me was Draymond says every rookie comes in and they have their veteran guys that they lean on. And he goes, well, Moses was my rookie. He's my rookie. And he said he's like family, and he loves the Moody family. He's gotten to know Moses' parents and his brother. And it is a family. NBA teams are like that. It's not just about the players on the team. Some are closer to individual players than others, but the families are embraced and brought in, and they're a part of a lot of the team functions and a lot of what's going on through the season. So you get to know everybody. But Draymond Green is especially protective of Moses Moody. Now, Draymond Green is a bit infamous as much as he is famous. I mean, he's a guy that will, he'll knock someone to the ground. He'll wipe somebody out. He's had his share of what you would consider low points in terms of the attention he gets, suspensions and getting ejected and those kind of things. He's one of those guys. But he embraces that. He brought it up and he said, that's just part of who I am. And I know what I'm doing out there. I understand what I'm doing. It's not done out of stupidity. It's just part of what I bring to the floor. And he goes that, there's a level of aggressiveness And some people might think I'm crossing the line, but it's just baked into my DNA and who I am as a player. And I don't see Draymond as a dirty player as much as a very physical, statement-making player. And some people might disagree with that and say, yeah, there are times he's crossed the line, and some of that's been a little dirty. I can't really argue the point, and he didn't really defend himself a whole lot other than to say he knows what he's doing, and if he's painted as a guy that's doing stuff out of stupidity, that's not the right brush to make those strokes with. He doesn't see it that way. He says he knows what he's doing, and most of it's calculated. All right, over 20 minutes into this, we're about to wrap up. Good to see Moses Moody back. This young man is an old soul. He is, still in his early 20s, and he's ahead of his time. I think that's why all those veteran guys with Golden State that have created a dynasty respect him, like him around, and believe in him as a basketball player, but also as a person. The fact that he gets it and he continues to work to extend his career to add value to the team, and both Moses and Draymond weighed in on that. And it's just good to see the kind of love and respect that he gets from the folks. Again, it was Klay Thompson 2 years ago, Draymond Green, and they both just have high praise. And the fact they took their downtime before spring training, or excuse me, not spring training, before training camp. The NBA season's maybe one of the longest out there. It ends, the finals end in late June. And then you've got the summer league, and a lot of the vets are coming to Las Vegas. Sometimes they have team meetings and even some on-court stuff, even with some of the veterans. There's not a whole lot of time off. And so for some of these players to come and take their time to come to Central Arkansas, and the other thing Moses said was important to him is being able to bring some of these household name people down to areas who wouldn't ever get to see these kind of guys other than on television. He goes, it wasn't long ago I was that guy sitting on the couch watching NBA games when I didn't have high school practice or whatever, and watching these, guys like Draymond Green and Steph Curry, watching them do what they do on the highest level, and you see them on ESPN Sports Center every night, and you dream about, what are these people really like? And he goes, now I get to know some of this stuff, but me telling the stories by myself isn't enough. I need to bring them down here so the local people can meet and greet. I mean, they spent about 30 to 40 minutes with some photo ops with fans, just people wanting to take pictures with them, which I thought that was really cool as well. At the end, Moses and his family presented a Stetson cowboy hat as a gift to Draymond Green. He put it on stage. I put some highlights of that, and they said, "Welcome to the South, Draymond." So it was pretty nice. It was really, really cool event. There's more going on. There's a youth camp, basketball camp today. I think they're having like a pro workout where people could have, I don't know how they organize that, where they've got like a 45-minute workout with Draymond Green and Moses Moody. And then there's some other events that sprinkle into Sunday as well. Some of it's educational stuff, including, financial management and other things where they're bringing in specialists to talk on these things, people that can help folks that may need to hear it. So it's more than just patting each other on the back and having the fireside chat, which was really cool. Got a lot out of that. Learned a lot about Draymond, his upbringing, more about Moses Moody, who I've covered and known his family. I'm close to the Moody family, going back several years, and great people. So it was a fun thing to take part in and get to be a witness to. And then again, if you haven't seen anything on that, go to my YouTube, or excuse me, my Twitter/X homepage. I put a lot of content out last night, a lot of video, and you hear Moses with our interview with media, as well as some of the things he and Draymond had to say during the fireside chat. Until next time, if something breaks, we'll come back on later today. If something that matters breaks, we're still waiting on more scheduling news, obviously, to wrap up the 25-26 schedule. We know most of the opponents. We don't know dates and everything just yet, and some of the non-conference opponents we don't know. So we're keeping an eye on that. Obviously, Arkansas continues on this path of getting 2026 players on campus for visits. We know some of that. We hope to learn some more soon. I'm working on a lot of stuff to bring you new intel soon. But until next time, thanks for being here. Appreciate all of you. See you soon.